Another jam-packed weekend of NHL action means an equally loaded Monday episode of your daily source for fantasy hockey news and betting breakdowns, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Coming in hot with all of this week's top waiver wire targets that you need. Let's break it all down on today's episode. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome back inside the betting, gambling, and fantasy hockey lab. I know a couple of those are the same, but what continues to be unique is Steel and I's fantasy take. Shout out to the everydayers for holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Indeed. Still searching for a great candidate for your company? Don't search, just match with Indeed. I hope Steele and I can help you match up with a couple of these fire waiver wire targets. I always get so fired up for Monday's episode, Steele. A lot to take in, a lot to digest in 30 minutes. We always try and get you guys in and out in 30 minutes or under. I've got a number of targets right now at the start of the season while coaches tinker with their lineup, Steele. There's a lot to look at. So over to you. Who you paying attention to? Who caught your eye from over the weekend? And, of course, we'll wrap this bad boy up with big-time bets. Try have another big week.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to kind of dwindle this list down to 3 targets for this upcoming week. We obviously have some honorable mentions. Before we get into those targets in week 5, I do just want to mention the injuries that took place or happened over the weekend as well. Matt Barzal, he is out. He is on long-term injured reserve. Out 4 to 6 weeks for the New York Islanders. Same goes with Adam Pelech. He will be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks too. Philip Broberg left the game against the Toronto Maple Leafs. What seemed to be like a upper body injury with a collision with Mitch Marner, I believe. So nothing's been determined yet, but he did leave the game and did not return, as well as Frederik Andersen is out week to week as well. So those are some of the updated injuries, as well as someone returning. John Gibson will be with the Anaheim Ducks this week as well. So he could be seeing some game time and some game action as soon as Tuesday this week. So lots to look out for with these injured players and returning players. Getting into the targets for this upcoming week, there was a lot of players I was looking at over this weekend. They had some great turnouts, some great production. Number 1 on my list, though, I've had him rostered on one of my fantasy leagues since the beginning of the season, and it's Alex Laferriere of the Los Angeles Kings. Under 25% rostered, both on ESPN and Yahoo right now. He has been a tremendous surprise to this Kings offense this season, and especially in fantasy hockey. 8 goals, 11 points in 12 games. He's on a 3-game goal streak, 6 points in his last 5, and he's already recorded over 65% of the goals he had at the end of last regular season. So he's been absolutely fantastic in the offensive zone for this Kings team, and it really comes down to Jim Hiller having trust in him right now. It's as simple as that. He trusts Laferriere to be a guy in the offensive zone that he can depend on. And that's what we're seeing sometimes right now with the mixing of the lineups for the LA Kings. Quinton Byfield has yet to score a goal. He's been struggling with that goal scoring touch. So he brings Quinton Byfield down onto that third line, centering Laferriere and Warren Fogle, who's been pretty good this season as well. Compared to last year, he's up 2.5 minutes of average ice time. He finds himself actually on the top power play unit, 29 shots, 24 hits, 7 blocks. He plays with an edge. He's got the shooting percentage up there. And to stream this player this week, one of 4 teams that plays 4 times this week: Nashville, Minnesota, Vancouver, and Columbus on the schedule for the LA Kings. So very advantageous for this Kings club.
Along with a young Washington Capitals player, Laferriere is my top target for this upcoming week. Preds, Wild, Canucks, and Blue Jackets. Yeah, the Wild are one of the best teams to start the year so far. But all 4 of those clubs, I like the opportunity for the LA Kings to get theirs on the offensive end. That's number 1. Number 2, it's really interesting that a player like this in Laferriere, who's actually quite a playmaker, has buried 8 goals. And I think this speaks to his playmaking ability, maybe bringing Byfield down. This is going to open it up a little bit for Byfield. So I'm intrigued at what this will do for him as well. You got to be taking a look at him this week. 55% on Fantrax, 24 on Yahoo, and 24 on ESPN. So he's probably out there. He was right there at the top of my list, Steele. So let's keep it rolling. Also, this LA Kings team has been a little bit of a mixed bag of performances so far. And I just really can't fully put my finger on, one night they look amazing. The other night they get pumped. They've allowed the most goals in the division aside from the San Jose Sharks so far this season with 40. So they're going to have to tighten it up on the back end. That doesn't have much to do with Laferriere's value this week, but I'm taking a close look at the Kings. I'm also looking at a player, Steele, that I've talked about at length. Friend of the show, Connor McMichael. I don't know if you actually saw this. He got notified that his wife was pregnant in the middle of
I saw that.
And he popped 2. He is a shooter. He is a player that put up 100-plus points in his last year with the London Knights. He's a 25th overall draft pick. He's got it done at every single level that he has played at, which now includes the NHL. 7 goals, 5 assists, 31 shots on net, a couple of PIMs. You don't really get this guy on the waiver wire to fill out those peripherals. You're grabbing him because of, right now, his offensive boost, and because that second line with Pierre-Luc Dubois, and I know the offensive production isn't jumping off the page, perhaps for PLD, he's looking much better. Tom Wilson's having a great start to the year, and I'll leave it at this. This Washington Capitals team, Steele, is much improved. And I'm not going to go out there and say they're a lock for the playoffs just yet. The tandem's looking good. The blue line is looking balanced. And right now, Ovi's starting to cook. This is very much like a couple of the other players we'll talk about after the break. I feel like the moment to get a piece of these Washington Capitals. So Connor McMichael, he's my guy this week. 3 games for the Caps, and I'll turn it back to you. Blue Jackets, Wild, and Devils. Mixed bag for that week, but I'm liking McMichael this week. That's a lie. Pens, Preds, and Blues. That's my
I was gonna save Connor McMichael for later in this episode, but you got everything down there right now. I mean, he's absolutely been fantastic for this Washington Capitals club. I have another player from this Capitals club as well. I had both Connor McMichael and Alexei Protas of the Capitals as targets for this upcoming week. Like you said, 6 goals in 5 games for McMichael, 22.6 shooting percentage. Even though, like you said, Pierre-Luc Dubois hasn't been the greatest offensive producer so far this year. 6 points in 10 games, still pretty solid right now. Tom Wilson is firing on all cylinders. That's number 1. Number 2, Alexei Protas playing on the top line with Dylan Strome and Alex Ovechkin right now. He is getting under 15 minutes of average ice time, but he's capitalizing on those chances every time he's playing with those guys. Ovechkin has found his mini Backstrom in Dylan Strome. He's got 12 assists on the season. Playing on the top line with Ovechkin and Strome has really opened up the door for Protas right now. He's got 8 points in his last 5 games. Like you said, 3 games this week for Washington, Nashville, Pittsburgh, and the St. Louis Blues. So both McMichael and Protas. I mean, I don't want to say it, but I might have to. This might be a wagon of a team right now. The Capitals are firing. They're one of the best teams in the NHL right now. I believe they're 8-2 on the season, 8-2-0. They've got 16 points in that Metropolitan. They find themselves in the top 3 in the division. They've been unbelievable so far this season.
And if you're going to continue to take a look at some of these young players, get a hold of them now. And I'm not saying Connor McMichael is added to your team or Laferriere and they're just there the whole season. But for now, Steele, it's looking like these are the kinds of angles that why not take a shot on them now while they're on the come up, and you can stick with it and ride it out. Let's ride out the rest of today's episode right after the break. We got a few more targets upcoming. Big time bets, Steele and I, we promise, finally going to take a little look under the hood at how our teams are doing, some of our favorite picks, some of the mistakes we made perhaps, and how we're going to fix them. We got some special guests coming up as well, so make sure you're tapped into the pod. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. You want to take a little over-under action? Justin Jefferson, more than 83.5 receiving yards. Maybe Patty Mahomes, over-under on the passing yards. You got to be checking out Prize Picks. This is where Steele and I have been making a lot of our fantasy predictions of late. Check out the app today. It's straight fire. Download it. Use code LOCKEDONNHL. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Make sure you're checking out Prize Picks. Run your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Indeed. driven by the search for better. When it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed, your number one matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data. Right now, listeners of our show get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked-on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on right now and tell them you support the show by you heard this ad on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire. You need Indeed.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday. At the end of the episode, we're going to show that support as well, like we always do with big time bets. 2 games on the schedule, but let's continue down this path in this avenue of the targets for week 5. I've got a lot of honorable mentions. I know you got some honorable mentions, but who else are you looking at to stream over the next 7 days?
Jake Walman's hit the list for me. Number one, the Sharks have looked a lot better over the last handful of games. And, I looked at Granlund. He's heavily owned, but he's on fire. If for some reason Granlund's out there in your league, he didn't even catch honorable mentions because he's up there like near 80% in most formats, but he is red hot as well. The Sharks 3-8-2. But they've looked a lot better, being very competitive, winning a couple of games and keeping them close. So the Sharks plug is out of the way. Walman is getting a massive opportunity here. He's eating almost 23 minutes of ice time per night. He's on the top pairing. He's on the top power play unit. He's got a goal and 8 assists, 12 penalty minutes. Still, he's got 35 shots on net. I know that's up there in the league. 4 shots on net by D-men. And chipping in with the periffs. 22 block shots, 16 hits. And I think as this team continues to tinker, by the way, Mike Greer, tidy piece of business getting Liljegren from the Leafs. This team is pointed in the right direction. And now Macklin Celebrini's back. I think, looking at their week this week as well, which I have right here, Blue Jackets, Wild, and Devils, pretty good week. 67% on Fantrax, 35 on Yahoo, and 27 on ESPN. I grabbed him 2 weeks ago, and he's been sensational. I say while he's hot, ride him. He can be a very streaky player, much like my last target. But right now, I really like Jake Walman all around and for this next week.
Jake Walman's been great, and he makes it to the honorable mention list for me, so I'll talk about him for 5 seconds when I get to those honorable mentions. I think for me, along with Alex Laferriere, I know they've got pretty much the exact same name except for a couple of
Laferriere.
Yeah, I know that's a tough one, but besides Laferriere. And obviously the Washington Capitals guys, I think these 2 next players for me are guys you have to go after. They're mostly available in Yahoo leagues right now. ESPN, the rostering, the percentages of them being on rosters is very high up there. Number 1, Marco Rossi and Jake Middleton. Rossi is owned at 11% on Yahoo, but 74% on ESPN. And the same can be said for Middleton. 35% on Yahoo for Middleton and 67% on ESPN. So if you're in a Yahoo league, these are guys that you're most likely able to get and definitely stream for this upcoming week. They are one of 4 teams, like I mentioned before, that plays 4 games this week. And you're not adding Marco Rossi for his peripheral stats. He's not going to go get blocks. He's not going to go get hits. Very minimal shots on net as well. But you're adding him for who he plays with. He plays with Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello, who leads the NHL in points right now. He's been absolutely fantastic. He sets a franchise record for 7 games with multi-point games. He's been amazing. So you're getting him for who he plays with, and obviously that second power play unit time that he gets. He's been fairly decent in the faceoff circle, coming in at 53% win ratio. 25% of his shifts start in the offensive zone. So when he's winning those faceoffs, he's got the time, the offensive zone time, creating those opportunities, like I said, with Kaprizov and Zuccarello. He's got 4 points in his last 5 games. Over to Jake Middleton, he's actually up 22% in the last week in both ESPN and Yahoo and roster percentage. Another surprising factor for the early success so far this season for Minnesota. He's got 2 goals, 8 points in 10 games, already 33% of what he had last year at the end of the regular season. So he's been cooking this year. You're mostly adding him for his presence elsewhere on the ice. 33 blocks, 16 hits, But
Sure.
if he can continue to chip in offensively like he's done early on this season,
Bonus.
you gotta streamline it. It's a bonus. It's the cherry on top. And this is why I'm saying you have to target these players. 4 games this week: the LA Kings, the San Jose Sharks, the Anaheim Ducks, and the Chicago Blackhawks.
Boom.
This Minnesota Wild team has been incredible. They're getting the defensive production, like I said, from those guys. Gustafson's been great. The top six unit's been fantastic. They're getting some chemistry now with that third line in there with Foligno, Trennan, and Gaudreau. I'm loving the look of this Minnesota Wild team, but you got to target Middleton and Marco Rossi because the schedule, very advantageous.
Schedule shaping up nicely for the Wild and Kings especially. So if you're just taking a few shots at the board, those two teams, and this is going to translate nicely into my next target, actually my next two, and my honorable mention is right now there's a few teams that are catching my eye that you just want a piece of. Vegas Golden Knights, Washington Capitals, Minnesota Wild, and then because of the schedule, probably the LA Kings this week. So, and another team that's looking pretty good. How about the reigning Cup champion, Florida Panthers? Very quickly, this is a player that I think, Steele, perhaps gets spoken about in waiver wire mention or episodes up there with the most in the league over the last couple of years. He's a prototypical waiver wire gem, Evan Rodriguez. Very streaky scorer, and right now he's hot. And like you said just previously, it's about who he's playing with. Top line, Barkov and Reinhart, red hot, both of them. Catch a piece of that action with Evan Rodriguez. 27% on Fantrax, 5 on Yahoo, and 6 on ESPN. He is playing really well. However, Preds and Flyers are the only 2 games this week, so the deployment isn't exactly there, but I like both of those matchups for the Florida Panthers to get theirs on the offensive end. I think he's the perfect little offensive bump for this week, and if he continues to stick on that top line, I'm okay to ride him out while he's hot because he has been a very streaky scorer in the course of his career.
Very good week for Rodriguez and those Florida Panthers in the Global Series against the Dallas Stars. 2 wins. Rodriguez had many goals and many points in those 2 games, so that's a great person to stream. But again, the schedule maybe not the best time with the 2 games this upcoming week. Real quickly, I forgot to mention Jake Middleton also on a 5-game point streak right now, so he has been getting after it. Honorable mentions before we get to big time bets. I've got 3. You already mentioned one. Jake Walman makes it to the honorable mention list. He's got 9 points on the season. The peripherals are very great. If you're not feeling Jake Walman, go look at Colton Parayko. 8 points, 26 shots, 17 hits, and 32 blocks. Great for those categorical leagues. And again, if Philip Broberg is down for at least the next couple of games, expect Colton Parayko to get some more opportunity as well. Last but not least, Adam Gaudette of the Ottawa Senators.
On fire.
The resurgence is incredible. He's got 6 goals in the last 5 games, and he's getting less than 13 minutes of average ice time. He has been great. So I believe he's on the second power play unit too. Not been great, the second power play unit, because the first one's been dominating. But Adam Gaudette, I had to mention him because he has been lighting up the lamp. 6 goals in his last 5 games. So those are my honorable mentions. Do you have any more before we get to big time bets?
I just want to throw out very quickly that second line in Vegas. I mentioned getting a piece of them. I came on here and spoke about Pavel Dorofeyev last week. 44% on Fantrax, 14 on Yahoo, and 12 on ESPN. This is a playmaking stud, and he actually has some pure offensive instincts that I really, really like. 35 shots on net, 10 points already. And again, you're not drafting or getting this player on the waiver wire to fill out your peripherals. You're getting him to give you a scoring bump. He has 5 points in his last 4 games, 6 points in his last 4 games, including 4 goals. And that second line with Tomas Hertl, and I think it's also Brett Howden, who's on that left side. Brett Howden could catch an honorable mention. He's been scoring goals. Dorofeyev also getting deployed on that top power play unit, Steele. So if you need a forward bump, I think also Vegas has only 2 games this week. That's why he gets honorable mention along with Rodriguez and Howden. But Oilers and Kraken, kind of favorable. Why don't you take us to break and we'll bust down these bets one time.
Those are all the waiver wire targets for week 5. Make sure you're adding them as soon as possible because they will be going quick, flying off the shelf. We're going to get to big time bets after the break. But first, this episode is brought to you by Built Rewards. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or hotel. Stay with 500 plus airlines or 700,000 plus hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them toward a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guys and Bank Rate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to join built.com/lockedonnhl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnhl. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join built.com/lockedonnhl to start earning points with your rent payments today. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get 150 bonus bets if you win. That's the FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place those bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. And once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. We really do appreciate all that love and support. Continue to smash the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Continue leaving all the comments on the YouTube page as well. We appreciate the feedback. We appreciate the conversations and the dialogue we get to have with all of our listeners out there. Whether you think we're right or wrong, let us know what your opinion
100%.
is. We just
Especially
really
when we're wrong.
Appreciate it. Yeah, when we're wrong, let us know. We really appreciate it. We like to get better out here. 2 games on the schedule. Oilers and Devils, Preds and Kings, flip. I know I have been talking for a little bit now, but if you don't mind, I would really like to kick us off here because I had a fantastic week in the bet.
Yes, you did.
Fantastic week. Last week, I went 13 for 15. The same game parlays were hitting. The anytime goals were hitting.
That anytime goal parlay that you had with the 3 same
that was
scorers,
spicy. That was
I
spicy.
am very upset that I didn't bank a little bit of cash on that. So I'm going to close my mouth up, and I want to hear who you're looking at and where I'm needed. I got bills to pay, Mr. Roden. So let's get it done. Who you looking at?
We're getting after it on Monday. We're getting after it all week. 2 games, like I said. First pick of the night, Oilers, Devils, over 6.5 in this matchup. 8 out of the last 10 have gone over the number. I realize Connor McDavid isn't in the lineup, but you still got Jack Hughes. You still got Nico Hischier, who's been rolling all season long so far. Jesper Bratt. So far, the goaltending for both Jacob Markstrom, Stuart Skinner, whoever's in the crease, hasn't been great defensively for both teams. I'm feeling the over 6.5. Like I said, that's the first pick. Second pick, I'm going to the Preds Kings under 6.5 in this matchup. 7 of the last 10 have gone under the number. UC Saros, the Nashville Predators, are getting a little bit back into formation. They're getting a little bit back to what we saw them do last year. And this is a rivalry game against the Kings and Preds. They do not like each other. I expect it to be physical, stingy defensively, and the goaltenders to have a little bit better of a showcase than what we've seen so far this season. I'm going with the under 6.5. If you don't like it, I know it's a little bit risky because of how they've been playing recently, but I like the under 6.5. And then I'm finishing it off with the lock of the night, Predators on the money line against the Kings. They've, for the most part, dominated the Kings over the last 10 games. So I'm rocking with them on Monday.
I like it. First of all, thank you for teeing up that over so eloquently and nicely for me that I don't even need to say anything other than I'm riding with the same over in the Edmonton Oilers tilt. Yeah, you really nailed that one. So thank you very much. The New Jersey Devils have looked like a shell of the team that I expected that they would over the last, let's say, since the 19th of October. They dropped one to Washington. Then they dropped an ugly one to Tampa. Same thing to Detroit and the Islanders. Then they beat the Ducks and Canucks. And then they get shut out by the Flames. So they really need to figure it out. I think that this is another big night for Leon Draisaitl. So let me tee this up. The over 6.5. This is a same game parlay. I'm smashing all 3 together. I'll get to my lock in a second. Leon Draisaitl looked like a man possessed in his win against Nashville. McDavid is out. It's going to be a couple of weeks, and this team needs to play a whole lot better. He went, boys, there's some space right here between the numbers. Jump on the back and let's go. 2 goals and an assist for the big German. Led the forwards in ice time with almost 20 minutes. I think he's going to continue to eat more minutes, perhaps, and I think it's going to mean good things for his offensive production in his career. Also, against this very same New Jersey Devils team, Mr. Roden, let me pull that up. How about 12 goals in 17 games? So, first pick, Leon Draisaitl, anytime goal along with that over, and my lock of the night. I think he's going to get this confidence game going, Steele, because he has had a pretty good start. 8 goals, 5 assists, 13 points in 11 games, only 29 shots, though. He had 3 shots on net last game. I think that number is going to continue to creep up. So give me my lock of the night with Leon Draisaitl. 4 or more shots on net for a team in the New Jersey Devils that allows a lot of shots on net right now. Give me Leon. Same game parlay, lock of the night is 4+ shots along with the anytime goal and the over.
You know I'm sprinkling a tenner on that same game parlay. I'm riding it with you there. We're getting after it Monday night. 2 games on the schedule. We like both of these matchups. Sometimes we dial it back when it comes to these lower or these
Not tonight.
Not tonight. We're getting after it on Monday with the big time bets. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. For your second listen, you got to go check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where this season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Once again, from both Flip and I, we appreciate all the love we've been shown over the course of this year, the course of the start of the season. We wish you good luck with all of your bets Monday night, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.